Treatment Court Grant Program. For those of you who don't know me or are just tuning in for the first time, my name is Adeline Padlina. I'm the grant coordinator for the Treatment Court Grant Program for the CJC, and I will be leading us through this meeting today. A couple things as we get started, and a few more people are joining us. This is a public meeting, so welcome everyone. But because it's a public meeting, a couple things. One, that means the chat feature will not be in action. So if you are a member of the public and you have a comment, you'll have the opportunity at the end of the presentation to share those comments. If you are a GRC member, Grant Review Committee member, you will have the chance to speak, to ask questions, etc. Also, it's important to note that this will be recorded and it will be posted to the CJC YouTube page later on. All right, I think with that, I think those are all my notes. We'll go ahead and get started. So a loose agenda for today, we're going to start with member introductions. I'm very excited to announce that we have a couple new Grant Review Committee members. So we're going to meet everyone who's here. We'll go over some committee roles and expectations, both of the GRC and of staff of the CJC. We'll spend a little bit of its time talking about conflicts of interest, what to do if that becomes an issue. We'll give you a little grant administration update to let you know what's happening over here at the CJC, as well as the Treatment Court Grant Program update, because presumably that is why you're really all here and what you'd really all like to hear. Then, like I said, we'll have a chance to hear public comment, and then we will end with questions and comments from our GRC members if they have any that haven't been answered thus far. So a quick note, this schedule is loose. I will get you out of here by 3, but other than that, can't really promise that we'll stick to everything else timing wise. Also, I just want to be really clear. It looks like we have several of our Grant Review Committee members here, which is great. It's a great opportunity for you all to meet them. However, I do want to note that because we're not making any decisions today, we're simply outlining the process and gathering some feedback. We don't need quorum. So if we are missing a couple of people, don't panic. It's okay. They'll catch up and get to watch the recorded version of it. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and allow all the Grant Review Committee members to introduce themselves. So I'll go through the names, and then when your name is called, please unmute, go ahead and introduce yourselves. And really what I'd love to know is your name, the role you play outside of being on the Grant Review Committee, and then why you were so generous and agreed to join this committee and helping guide the Treatment Court grant program as we go forward. So with that, Annie, I saw you're here. Would you go ahead and start us off?
Sure. My name is Annie Borton.
Oh, and you're muted.
Can you hear me now? Is that working?
It sounds like you're not. You're good.
How about now?
You're good.
Okay. Awesome. My name is Annie Borton. I'm actually with the Oregon Public Defense Commission. I previously was a lawyer for in Multnomah and Washington counties, but I do currently a lot of work with family treatment courts, and you know, kind of learning about them and how to support them, and kind of through that work, I've become very interested in all these other processes, which has led me to this.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. We're so glad you're here, and I will make sure to update your job title. Connie, I saw you're here as well. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Connie Absher. I work with Lincoln County Behavioral Health, and I am a specialty court alumni. I'm a 2015 drug court graduate. I also currently serve on our Lincoln County Wellness Court, Mental Health and Wellness Court team, as one of our clinical counselors.
Incredible. Thank you so much. We're so glad you're here. Jake, go ahead.
Yes, I'm Jake Greer with Lake County Community Justice down in Lakeview, Oregon. My role on our team is I write our grants, and then I'm also our treatment court program administrator. And I joined this group, oh boy, it's been probably 8-10 years ago. And I enjoyed being on it because I learned something new every year for the following year to tweak our program.
Incredible. We're glad you're back. Joe, you're back too.
Yeah, thank you. Joe Garcia, Community Corrections Director down in Douglas County. I've been involved in treatment courts for 25 years now. Yeah, I've been part of this group since I remember the conversations to start the group back in the day. So I've been around a bit and so glad to be part of it again. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Julie, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Julie Hewer. I'm the treatment court program manager for Columbia County. So I oversee adult treatment court, family treatment court, our behavioral health court, and also our veteran treatment court. And the second time I've been on the grant review committee, and I really enjoyed the process the first time, just seeing things from the other side. And I just want to continue to be that coordinator or program voice for the committee. I think it's super important that we have folks that are doing the work. I'm super excited that Connie is joining us. That's amazing. So yeah, I'm really invested in the process and I'm excited to be a part of it again.
Excellent. Well, we're excited you're a part of it again too. Thanks for being here. I want to give Kelsey McDaniel a chance. I didn't see her on the list, so I wasn't sure if she was able to make it, but I do want to give her a chance to speak up if she is here. All right, doesn't look like it. Hopefully she'll be able to join us later. She's the district attorney from Union County, so brings a really important perspective from both being in a rural county and then also as a DA. So hopefully she'll be able to join us next time. But Melissa, please tell us about yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Thompson. I am the Chief Behavioral Health Officer for Best Care Treatment Services in Central Oregon and Klamath Falls. I years ago was part of the drug court program here in Deschutes County and have stayed connected with treatment courts in Central Oregon throughout my 13 years living here. Kind of did some dabbling in the CCO world for a little bit and came back to community mental health, where I hope to just continue to support the great work that the treatment courts do and be able to help this committee in however I can. Thanks for having me.
Incredible. Thanks so much for being here. Judge Kitson McCadish, I saw you joined us. Hello.
Hi. Yes, thanks for having me. So Judge Kitson McCadish from Lynn County Circuit Court, and I'm the Family Treatment Court judge, and I handle all other kinds of cases as well. My first time participating in this, and I'm here because Adeline is very persuasive and very professional, and I'm excited to be a part of this and learn from you guys. I became a lawyer because I received a lot of money in grants to pay for my education. So I really appreciate the grant process. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much. We're so glad you're here. And finally, RJ, I saw you jumped on. If you would like to just let us know your role and your name and why you want to be part again of the Treatment Court Grant Review Committee.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So my name's Ramiro Navarro Jr., but most people call me RJ for short. I'm a person with lived experience in with the criminal justice system. I'm a peer support specialist, and I'm passionate about giving folks a second chance because I feel like I'm kind of an example of that.
Amazing. Thank you all so much for taking the time to introduce yourselves. I'm really, really looking forward to working with all of you. And truly, I think one of the things that I'm most excited about is just the breadth and width of experiences that we have on this committee, and coming from so many different parts of the courts or adjacent parts to the court. I think it'll give us a really nice, hopefully well-rounded lens when we're looking at this grant program. So thank you truly, all of you, for being there with us. All right, then I think we're going to go ahead and we are going to get started on kind of the process. And when I say the process, I want to be really clear for you all as the new GRC members, what kind of we're expecting from you, and then also what you can expect from us. And when I say us, I want to be really clear and just give a really strong shout out to my team. You see me a lot when we give these presentations and you get emails a lot from me, but there's a whole team of people that I work with that are on the treatment court team who I could not do this job without. They are the ones who are gathering data. They're turning it into legible things. They are keeping me on task. They are figuring out as them apply because it's wild in there. I just really, really want to shout out to my team because they do like a really, really great job. And I know sometimes it can be frustrating coming from the CJC, like, oh, it seems like you guys take a long time, or, oh, it seems like, why are you doing the things you do? And it's because we're small but mighty, and we're working hard on the back end. So hopefully this process will kind of give you a little snapshot of that. And we'll let you know kind of what to expect from us going forward through this process. So first and foremost, I just wanted to take a minute to just briefly outline the application process and kind of where we are in it, right? So the treatment court grant program application is broken into two pieces, and that's a preliminary application and a final application. Now, the great thing is the preliminary application, done. They have already turned in their application, which included a 9-question narrative. This is where they're giving us the details about what kind of makes their program tick, where they're struggling, what they're doing really well, all of those things. Also some documentation, which we'll go over later in the presentation. It's also going to include data that's pulled from the Specialty Court Management System, or SCMS, as well as their specialty court operating profile. So that's part one of the application process. That's the preliminary application. And then later on, we will open, and I'll get to a timeline in a bit, we're going to open the final application. And that really is an opportunity to respond to the feedback that you all as the GRC are giving them, as well as an opportunity to fill in kind of any missing pieces. So if there was any of that missing documentation, anything like that. And then finally, that's going to be where they are requesting funds. So that is going to be their budget projection, what they're hoping to get from this grant program so that they can run their program for the next 2 years, or it'll be a supplement to their program for the next biennium. So that is kind of how that's outlined. And I thought that was important because it kind of helps outline what our roles are through this process. So there's kind of 3 groups that are doing 3 main things. So your staff, that is yours truly, and the treatment court grant team at the CJC, we're going to be kind of that first line of defense. We're going to be reviewing the applications to make sure that they're complete. We're making sure folks are eligible for this grant. We're going to analyze and score each application's adherence to the Oregon Specialty Court standards. And we're going to turn that into a couple different data points that we'll give to you. We'll get into that in a bit. And then we're also going to be on the lookout as we're going over these applications, as we're looking through them, making sure that we're identifying any needs or gaps in resources among each court as to why they are potentially not meeting the standards, or are there any resources that we can help with that can get them where they need to be. That's kind of our main role as staff. And then we bring that information to you all, to the GRC. So as the grant review committee, you're in charge of evaluating their adherence to specialty court standards. You're going to all work together and discuss those applications collaboratively. And then you're going to provide recommendations for funding requests to the grantees for that final application round. So you're going to say, hey, we looked at this, we reviewed it with our, again, depth of experiences in different parts of these courts. These are what we would suggest that you ask for, you work towards. And then they're going to take that information and use that in their final funding request. And then after you review all of that, you're going to provide the final funding recommendations to the commission. So I know sometimes it gets confusing. There's a lot of CJC, right? So we are the Criminal Justice Commission, but we also have a Criminal Justice Commission. So that is members who they meet once a month, and they are going to be our decision-making panel. And they're the ones that are going to consider the funding recommendations that you all, the GRC, make. And then they are the ones, that panel, that Criminal Justice Commission, are going to make the ultimate funding decisions on the applications. Now, I just want to check in with our GRC members. I know some of you, this is old hat. You're like, Adeline, I've heard this 100 times. But for our new members, do we have any questions? Does that all make sense? Are we feeling good? Perfect. All right, I've got a thumbs up and a nod. I will take it. Incredible. Now we're going to get into conflicts of interest, right? Because as members of the GRC who are coming from Oregon, and this, what I've found in my time at the CJC is that the treatment court world is pretty small. Everyone's pretty connected. And so in all likelihood, most of you, if not all of you, will have some conflict of interest. That is okay. We are not panicking. So what we have to note, though, is that GRC members may not take part of a decision-making process or make any recommendations on an application that in any way will benefit them, right? This makes sense. So if an application arises that a GRC member submitted, contributed to, would receive funding through, or otherwise would bestow benefits upon that member, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to identify that conflict on those applications prior to our first GRC meeting. So what that looks like is prior to our meeting in May, you're going to email me and you're going to be like, hey, Adeline, I'm so-and-so on this GRC. We're going to pick on Jake for a minute. Jake's a good example. He's going to email me and he's going to say, hey, Adeline, as the coordinator for the grant in Lake County, I have a conflict of interest with Lake County. I'm going to make that note and I'm going to say, great. And then during the virtual meeting, the GRC member who has a conflict is going to mute themselves and they're not going to take part in any discussion while those applications are reviewed, right? So when we get to Lake County, Jake is going to mute, and no matter how much he's dying to tell you, oh, this is what they meant on that application, or, oh, this is, no, I haven't answered. He's not. He's going to be muted. He's going to be silent. You all, the rest of the GRC, are going to make that decision and give your feedback. And then as we move to the next one, then Jake will unmute and contribute to the rest of the conversation. Does that make sense to everyone? I don't think that's new. I think we're pretty used to conflicts of interest. Excellent. I also want to note this photo is my favorite conflict of interest. I am a Beaver fan married to a diehard Duck fan. So this conflict shows up in my home a lot. Go Beavs. All right. Moving on. I did want to talk a little bit about what we have been doing just in the CJC as a whole with our grant just administration update real quick before we get into the treatment court processes. So we across the board as CJC have really been working hard to kind of standardize our processes across all of the CJC's grant programs. And really, this is based on feedback that we heard from our grantees and really trying to provide predictability. We want consistency, and above all, we want transparency. So we're really trying to do that. One of the ways that we did that or have started doing that is through our grant administration guide, lovingly called the GAG. That tells you what you can ask for. It gives guidance around the grant processes as well as what's allowable, what's not allowed about it, just some general guidance. You can find the grant administration guide on our CJC website. Actually, all the grant programs, I believe, have it posted. So it doesn't matter what page you can go to, you can find it. I'm also, if you need it, happy to email it to you. We're doing a new one though. So we're updating it. The newest edition is real close to being finished, not quite there. It will, however, be released before the final treatment court grant program application is due. So grantees will have access to it. They will be able to see it. There are a few changes. The vast majority of them will not affect the treatment court grant program applicants. The allowables that are now unallowable, that kind of stuff, are just things that treatment court grantees aren't asking for. So that shouldn't be a problem. But we'll still let everyone know when it's available and they can look through. The other thing that's across all the CJC grants that I wanted to point out, because it's already come up in a couple of emails, are administrative costs. So I know that federally these have changed a little bit, but for the CJC, administrative costs will be capped at 10% across all of our grants. So for the treatment court grant, the most that they can ask for administrative costs is still riding right at that 10% of their total budget. All right. Any questions about that? All right, we're fine. We're going to keep going then. Let's talk about what's new in treatment courts then, because we have some updates. So first and foremost, notable new change, if you've been here for a while. In fact, I bet Joe could speak to like how many iterations there have been and how many different names there have been for this program. But as of the 25-27 biennium, our new name is the Treatment Court Grant Program. So it used to be the Specialty Court Grant Program. I think before that it was the Drug Court Program. Now we're going by treatment courts. I will be the first to admit I am working hard on this name change, but I slip up once in a while. So if you hear me call something a specialty court, I am talking about the same thing. It is a treatment court. You'll see it too in some of the other naming mechanisms that we have, specifically with a couple guides and standards and that kind of thing. They're referring to specialty courts. They are one and the same, but we're moving that way, treatment court, from here on out. Another big one is we have capped requests for our incoming grant requests. So during that final application, when grantees start asking for funding, they're going to be held to a 5% increase of their original award. Now, I want to make a couple caveats about this and just be really clear. One thing that might be coming to mind if you've been following our treatment court journey over the last biennium is that thanks to House Bill 4002, treatment courts got additional funds at the end of the third quarter. That 5% increase includes those funds. So that is what we're considering part of their original award. So it is 5% of the total funds, or a 5% increase of the total funds that they've gotten, including that money. Another thing that is important is that we have a couple first-time applicants. So when I say first-time applicants, I mean applicants that are brand new. They've never gotten treatment court funding from us at all. Some of them are just starting out their treatment courts. But instead of going through the implementation grant, they decided that they still want to come through the big treatment court grant. That's totally fine. They obviously don't have a cap because their original amount was 0, and we're not going to hold them to 5% of 0. That doesn't seem fair. So they'll have no cap. The other group that won't have a cap will be the courts that were previously grantees of our implementation grant. During the implementation grant, they were capped at $150,000. Many of those courts have been active. They are moving on up. And so they will not be held to the 5% increase from that $150,000. They'll be asked, or they will be able to ask for what they need. Of course, a good reminder to all the grantees watching and listening, we do really highly recommend asking for what you need and keeping those funds kind of to your request and to your feedback, because we are going to have a limited number of funds. Now, Jake, your hand popped up. Let's go. What do you got for me?
Quick question.
Yeah.
Last grant review committee, we had a couple first-time programs apply for this this program, this grant program, and we referred them to the implementation
Yes.
grant. So is that different for this grant process? We're allowing first timers in this process?
Yeah, so we are allowing anyone who met the eligibility requirements was able to apply. And we did, I know with a few of them, had conversations about, is this the best fit for you? Would implementation be better? And they have decided to move forward with this, so that as long as they're meeting our eligibility requirements, they are more than welcome to apply. And so they can go forward that way. If, as we get through, right, if they decide before the final application that they maybe this isn't the best fit and they do potentially want to maybe look into that implementation grant, if they drop out of this one and they want to apply for that one, they can do that.
Thank you.
Of course. Great question. I want to give time if anyone else has questions. All right.
Adeline, sorry,
yes.
quick question. So
Yeah.
original award, these run in 2-year cycles, is that correct?
They do, yeah. So this
And
was 23 to 25.
Okay, and you just look back at the last one, not the first one, but the original award is the most recent award they received.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. All right. So moving forward, again, kind of bouncing back to that House Bill 4002, to give a very, very short synopsis. What this did was it gave money to OJD, our partners, to fund coordinators, which is really great. And then we also, when I say we, I mean the CJC and the county grant, also got additional funds. That is a very, very short synopsis. That is the Cliff Notes version. But what that means is that all of the requests for coordinators and for other OJD personnel are going to go through OJD. So there won't be any requests for OJD personnel accepted through the CJC grant this time. Similarly, as much as we really appreciate all the awesome work that alumni do and alumni groups do, unfortunately, just because we are limited on funds, we really need to focus on funding for folks who are actively utilizing the treatment courts. And therefore, we won't be accepting any requests for alumni groups or any alumni requests either. So it's a bummer. Limited funds are a bummer. We also, we'll get into this much deeper, but I just wanted to make a quick brief note that there is an updated budget projection sheet. If anyone's desperate to see it, it is available on the treatment court page of the CJC's website. But we'll get deep into it as we go through this process. I'll do a webinar to fill it out. It looks mostly like the old budget projection sheet. There's just a little section there where folks will get a little bit deeper into contractual services. It's almost like a worksheet on there. And then there's a second tab that allows the grantees to suggest prioritization. So kind of with the understanding that in all likelihood, we will have to make reductions. Where would they like to see their funding prioritized? I want to be really clear and very upfront that if their prioritization is not guaranteed by any means, that's up to, of course, the commission. But we just want their feedback as well about where they think the funding would be most useful if they do have to do reductions. Similarly, as before, RISE is a really popular conference that happens every year. We spend quite a bit of funding to send folks to RISE every year from every court. That funding will most likely be capped. I do say most likely, there is a little caveat. We don't yet know what our budget for the treatment court grant program is because, as I'm sure you're all aware, we are still actively in the legislative session. So that hasn't been for sure permanent yet. It's not, we don't know it exactly. And we also don't know right yet what the funding requests will be. So that potentially could change the cap on it. Maybe in the perfect world, we wouldn't have to, but we most likely would. So I just want you all as GRC to be aware of that. And also the grantees who are listening as well, just know that there's a good chance that will be capped. And just to give kind of some context for our new GRC members, last biennium, prior to the additional funds that came through 4002, we capped that at $12,000 for the biennium, or sending 4 people from their court. So just to give you kind of an idea of what the cap looked like before. And then finally, underspending. So underspending is going to be considered this biennium. And I want to be clear because, right, folks just finished up Q7, but obviously we're getting into the process here, the review process. So we'll review Q1 through Q7 spending data. So that is where we're going to be looking at. We are going to be considering it. I haven't seen the Q7 numbers yet, but to kind of give you a sort of idea of where we're looking, about a third of courts at the end of Q6 had spent less than 30% of their funds. So underspending is something that's happening, and we want to just be clear that we will be looking at it going forward. All right. Let's keep going. All right. So I wanted to give you all the timeline, and this slide will show up a couple of times just to forewarn you, but I think it's helpful to kind of walk us through the process. So as we've discussed, the grant solicitation was already released. It was released in February. It was due on March 20th. We had 59 applicants, or have 59 applicants. And you all made it to our grant review committee pre-review meeting. So look at that. We're a third of the way through our timeline already. Great job. And then you'll notice the arrow is in the space kind of between today's meeting and when the GRC is going to meet to evaluate the adherence to standards. And that's because staff are hard at work. We are actively analyzing those applications, and making sure that folks are eligible and all kinds of good stuff. So I wanted to kind of walk you through what you can expect from us as staff to be doing. So first and foremost, we are making sure that applicants are eligible. So to be eligible for this grant, county needed to have an existing Oregon Circuit Court treatment court. Those programs need to use Oregon Specialty Court Management System, SCMS, and they must include a treatment provider that accepts the Oregon Health Plan. So those are the 3 big ones. We're going to make sure that they're all meeting that. And like I said, currently we have 59, which to my knowledge is the largest pool of applicants for this grant that we've ever had. We're also going to be going through to make sure that documentation is there. And really this documentation being required was kind of born out of this desire to lighten the lift for applicants. So instead of having them explain their processes and why they do them, we ask for documentation to explain it for them, right? So they've got to upload these documents, but they don't have to write like 10,000 words in the meantime, right? Give and take. And this includes a letter of support from the LPSC, as well as a letter of support from the presiding judge. It'll include the participant manual, the policy and procedure manual, eligibility criteria for participants, and then any MOUs that are involved. So staff will make sure that those documents are present. And if they're not, again, I want to stress, you all know through working in the government or around the government, sometimes these things take time, right? And so we've had a couple folks say, hey, you know, the application was due, but our LPSC hasn't met yet to sign the letter, that kind of stuff. So we have a couple holding documents in there for a couple grantees. We have a couple folks that just weren't able to get them in on time. They will notify them, and then they'll have a chance to submit any of those missing documents or update any documents in the final application round. So there's a little bit of time. We have some wiggle room. The other thing we're going to be doing as CJC staff is we're going to be doing a qualitative analysis. And really, we're going to be focusing our North Star are the courts adhering to the Oregon Specialty Court standards? Because that is legislatively what they are supposed to be aiming to do. And so we try really, really hard to listen to feedback from you all as the GRC. We also tried really hard to listen to feedback from our applicants. And one of the things was like, hey, these applications are so long. It's such a big lift. It's so heavy. And especially when you think about it, a lot of our applicants have, sometimes you have coordinators that are running 3, 4, even 5 courts, right? So it's big. They're big, right? And this is a big lift. And so what we did was we updated our questions and really tried to really hone in on providing them the opportunity to highlight what standards are being met and what they're doing really well as giving them the opportunity to provide details about what standards are presenting challenges, and it varies a lot. I don't have to tell you all on where they are in the state, right? What they have available. Are they an urban county? Are they a frontier county? All of those make a huge difference. And all of our courts are really unique in that they work really hard to get around those barriers. And so we're trying to get to, okay, what are they doing really well, and how have they met these challenges head on, and how are they fixing these issues, and where can we kind of step in to maybe help do that? Where can funding help do that? All those kinds of things. So we will be looking through that, giving those answers to you. And we really did try and make the application shorter. It has fewer questions. We put in word limits to really get to the concise part of the issue. And then we really encouraged collaboration from the entire treatment court team, because we know that different folks have different experiences and are bringing different lenses to it. And we really wanted to see the whole picture as much as possible. So we'll be taking that qualitative analysis and bringing it to you all. And then we'll also be bringing you a quantitative analysis. And this was kind of first introduced in the 23-25 biennium, with really the focus wanting to rely on quantitative outcomes, and really this idea of wanting to maintain equity and consistency in assessing these applications. And so this shows up in a couple different ways. So working with our partners at OJD, shout out to their team, they're great. They pulled data from SCMS. We've also quantified and scored outcomes from the SCOP as well. So SCMS and SCOP, we're taking those outcomes. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be considering underspending. So we're looking at numbers, right? We're looking at money, of course, and we're looking at what does the data say, right? And that shows up, the way we're going to give it to you all is going to be a score sheet. I want to apologize first and foremost. I recognize the score sheet looks real small on this screen. If the GRC, I promise you will get to know the sheet very, very well. You'll get to know 59 of them. But if you want to see a template ahead of time, just email me and I'm happy to send you a template. That really goes for anyone watching this video. If you would like to see the template up close and personal, happy to get it to you. But in the meantime, just zoom in, do your best. We're going to look at this to show us adherence to specific questions from the SCOP and SCMS data. And so just like in 23-25, the scorecard looks very, very similar with some new colors, looking a little fancy, a little flashy, but mostly the same. The only difference is that certain elements that were previously recommendations are now going to be scored. So we'll still have both scores and recommendations. Those might just look a little different from the 23-25 biennium. And so what we'll do is we will bring this to you all as the GRC, and you'll be able to review this when you review their narrative applications. And then both this score sheet and your feedback will be provided to the applicants before they submit their final application. So they're going to use this information to figure out, okay, this is maybe where we should be asking for funding. We didn't score so high here. We need more funding here. Oh, we scored great here. Maybe this is where we should keep this level of funding. It's just really meant as hopefully to provide guidance and just a look at where both, you know, to really honor where they're doing really well, and then maybe some areas for improvement as well. Now, I've mentioned several times that we are going to analyze. We're talking about analysis, and I want to be very clear as we get into this next one. I went to college quite a while ago, and while I did pass statistics, it was touch and go there for a minute. So I'm going to go over the analysis and how we're going to fill it out. But if you have deep statistical questions, I do have someone on the line who told me she'll pop in. She used to teach stats. So if we need it, it's there. The way that we're going to analyze these is we're going to break them up into buckets. So first and foremost, the courts will be compared by court type. So you're going to have your adult drug courts compared to your other adult drug courts. Your family treatment courts are going to be compared to your family treatment courts. And then once we have that, we're going to use the mean scorecard score, and we'll bucket courts who fell one standard deviation from that mean. So if I have lost you because we've gotten into statistics, what I'm telling you in layman's terms is we've created a bell curve. And so what that looks like is we're going to have an abbreviated analysis for a few courts that have scored over the mean. They're doing really well. And that might look like we give you the overall score. We give you the standards missed. We give you staff recommendations and any other like pertinent information. If there's something that makes this court unique, we're going to let you know that. But it's going to be abbreviated. It's going to be a little shorter. Now, for the biggest chunk of courts in that middle, right, the middle of your bell curve, you're going to see their overall score, the standards missed, some relevant data points, and then also their 23 to 25 spending, any CJC staff recommendations, and again, any other pertinent information that we think, hey, this is noteworthy, you should know. And then finally, on the other side of that bell curve are going to be the courts that were less than a standard deviation from that mean. And they're going to get a little more of analysis. They're going to get a little more information given to you. So we're going to give you the overall score, the standards missed, relevant data points, if they're missing any documents, spending patterns, trends, staff recommendations, and any other pertinent information. So I'm guessing there might be some questions about this, but I wanted to kind of give you an example. So bear with me before we ask questions. So this is going to be an example of what that abbreviated analysis might look like. So this is in that top left of the bell curve, right? These courts are doing really well. So we might give you their score, might give you a CJC recommendation, which in this case, it was keep doing what they're doing essentially. And then the standard that they met. Now, I want to be really clear. All of the courts are going through the same analysis. So if you're like, well, Adeline, yeah, this court did this, but I'd like to know this other additional thing about the court, just because it's not on the slide doesn't mean I can't tell you. We're doing the same thing across the board for all of them. So you can definitely ask me and we can definitely get you that information. This is just meant to sort of expedite the process a little bit. For our, oops, it didn't change. There we go. So for that standard analysis, this is going to be kind of that middle group. You're going to get a little more information, right? You're going to get the score. You're going to get the CJC recommendations. Maybe they're spending this nice participants over time graph, standards not met, etc. So a little bit more information just to help you make decisions around what kind of guidance you want to give them. And then finally, you might have this additional analysis. And this might look like getting more information. We want to get a little deeper. Maybe they're not meeting more of the standards. And it might even be like a 2-slide situation, right? Let's look a little deeper into spending patterns and trends. Let's look a little deeper into these recommendations, that kind of thing. So with that, I want to go back for just a moment. And I want to give you all the GRC a chance to really kind of look at this and just think. I want to give you a chance to give feedback. When you're looking at this, you've seen the examples. Is there any other feedback that you would like, or any other analysis that you can think of off the cuff that might be helpful, that you would like the CJC to gather and to put into these analyses that we're going to present to you at the first GRC meeting? Yes. Judge Kitson-McCoddish.
Yeah, so will there be information regarding like how long the court's been in existence or just a little bit of background about it?
We definitely, if you have specific questions about that, we definitely can answer. All courts are being held to the same standard. So even if it's a new court, they are going to get scores, and that even if their score isn't as good, right, because they're a brand new court, they're still going to be held to that same standard. So we can get you that information. It'll might not be something that we can use to make those decisions. Does that make sense? Did I answer your question? Okay. Melissa, go ahead.
And it may have said it on there and I missed it, but will there be information in regards to like how the number of participants that have the Oregon Health Plan versus the ones that do not?
Oh, that is a great question. I think that is, can I get back to you on that?
Yeah.
I don't want to say for sure that we can get that information. I believe we can.
Okay.
I want to make sure though before we can, right? It is an eligibility requirement that they have an option for folks that have OHP. And my understanding is that most folks who are going through treatment courts do utilize OHP, but I don't know if we'll have a set number. Let me get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you.
Good job. The first stumping question. I was getting too confident. And Judge, did you have another question? Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure. And of course, I recognize that you all didn't know this question was coming. So if after this, you're thinking about this presentation and you're like, man, I really wish I would have suggested this information that I'd want to see, you can always email me and let me know. And that's something that we can take into consideration as well. All right. I want to give folks a chance to answer, but also don't want you to just sit here and stare at me. All right, let's keep going then. Back through our examples. All right, so once you all have deliberated, you've given your feedback, right? And you've looked through these score sheets, etc. Then we, being CJC staff, we are going to take that feedback and we are going to turn it into feedback letters. So each grantee will get one of these feedback letters. I have an example for you here from one from last biennium. This will kind of be or at least how in the past it was broken down. We're assuming that we'll do something similar. It'll outline, here's the standards that have not been met. Here's your recommended use of funding based on what the GRC has seen and what you have said, and just some general feedback. And one thing I want to note that I think has been really helpful and that I hope we can continue to do is the team really attempted to standardize language so that everyone got the same kind of feedback if needed. So obviously different courts need different things. So we're not giving everyone the same exact feedback. But for instance, this, if you look under recommended use of funding, there's obtain weekend and holiday drug testing services. If there were courts that were not meeting that standard, we suggested that to all of them. We had very standard language, just again, because we're really trying to focus on consistency and equity in these courts. So we'll do that as well. And that'll be something that you all as the GRC play a big part in, is making sure that we have the correct language that you're using. The good news is, though, that I want to be clear for all of you, is we are not expecting you to write these out. Lucky for you. That is something that I get the extreme joy of doing. We'll be taking, my lovely coworkers and I will be taking notes during the GRC meeting. We're going to gather your feedback from the preliminary applications and turn it into the feedback letters. So you're not going to have to write any letters, just in case you were worried. All right. The other big thing that I wanted to go over with you all today when we're talking about feedback is really being clear about, as we're gathering this together, as staff are analyzing these applications, are there any flags we should be looking for to bring to you, the GRC, during our analysis? So in the past, the way we've done this is we have based the feedback on the needs and improvement for adherence to standards, right? That's what's in statute. That's our North Star. Are you adhering to best practice standards, right? And also, again, if you're not, right, how can we help fill that resource gap that's preventing courts from operationalizing these standards, right? So that's kind of where we are at right now. But over the years, there have been different things that needed flagged. And one of the ones that we've been thinking of at the CJC is around appropriate FTE for personnel funding. So I'm sure Joe can speak to this and others. They are expecting a budget shortfall in community corrections. And community corrections, parole, and probation officers are often part of treatment court teams. They're an important part of the team. However, as I've mentioned a couple of times, we have 59 applicants and we have limited funding. So we, as the CJC, as this grant, we are not equipped to fill that gap. And so one thing we've been thinking about is if a court does request personnel, we want to make sure that the request matches the amount of work that they're doing for the treatment courts. And so what we would suggest as staff is that you all, as the GRC, you suggest really clear feedback on how applicants can describe their personnel needs when they do that final application where they're asking for funding. So this is where I would love to hear feedback from you all as the GRC. And I want to be clear, I'm not asking you to give me like an exact sentence or an exact, oh, I want to know this exact piece of feedback. What I'm really looking for from this is there anything that you all from your various points of work and various treatment court adjacent lives, are there any other flags that we should be looking for to bring to you during our initial analysis as staff? Yeah, Joe, go ahead.
I'll just comment on the community corrections officers. So one of the things we've done historically in the past was we did consider them in short of if we had budget shortfalls, but what we were very clear about is we wouldn't use it to backfill like all of those things. It wasn't really appropriate to do so, and because most offices, most programs, part of the requirement for best practices is that you do have a parole and probation officer who is part of the team, just like you have treatment and other different folks that receive funding to be part of the team. And so, so I guess the question I have with it kind of being listed on here, I mean, are we applying the same standard to all agencies? Because, for example, I mean, if Medicare has reductions, I'm not so certain the state can backfill if all of those go away based on the federal funds. So we're going to have treatment gaps even greater than maybe we have experienced before. And so is the expectation from CJC that we apply the standard across all professions or just certain professions?
I mean, the idea, of course, would be all, right? Consistency. And I think that's where we really look for to you all as the GRC to provide some guidance around what does this grant want to focus on, right? What does this grant originally, it was really meant as filling in gaps, right? And gap funding, right? So is that what we're going to focus on? It is for treatment courts, right? So in the past, a lot of focus had been on treatment. So yes, we do want to make sure we're applying all of this. I actually had this conversation earlier around, because there is, right? We don't know exactly where things are going with federal funding. As of right now, we are actively going forward with the idea that it hasn't changed yet. So we're going to continue on. But one of the beautiful things I do want to note about this grant is there is some flexibility, right? So if, say, to use your example, like Medicare funding does change, we can definitely come back to the drawing board and say, okay, this has been a change. How are we going to react to it, right? So I do want to make that note. And yes, to your point, I think it is important to note that different courts need different things, right? And so one thing that we've been really working on and really focusing on, speaking of treatment, is a treatment worksheet that is really outlining, okay, like what does this contractual service look like, and what is being paid, who is paying for what kind of thing, and making it a little bit clearer on that side, which is why treatment wasn't listed as an example on this slide, because we've kind of started to work on that through that worksheet. But I think what we're looking for now is really, is there anything else that that you would like to flag? Are there other areas that you want us to focus on when it comes to bringing you this grantee information that you want to give specific feedback on? Did that answer your question?
I would say kind of. I think more of what I'm getting at is, and kind of touched on it, like, what are the core components of a program? And we've historically always tried to do our best, and that varies depending on what jurisdiction you're in, the size of it, what resources you have. Some communities, for example, have a lot of supplemental funding that comes in from counties.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us don't receive anything. And I'm not just talking about community corrections, I'm just talking about systemically,
Sure.
and the services that support treatment courts. And so, and so when we get down to making some decisions, we've found, like, there's a certain amount of baseline funding that needs to be provided for courts to even be operational. And as we're kind of moving forward and balancing some of this stuff, that's just why I was asking about this, because we've through the years, we've now started to expand into other things. And I'm not saying they're not needed or supported or effective, so please don't take it that way. But
No.
into like peer mentors or things like that aren't really historically core functions of a program. And so, but people put in a lot of requests for those types of services. And then we get questions about, like, infrastructure, like, for example, DAs or public defenders or, community corrections officers as part of that conversation, whether or not there should be funding for those things or not. And so just knowing where we're at budget-wise and some of the challenges of the unknown right now, that's kind of why I bring it up more from that standpoint of, how are we going to be making some of these decisions, or we may even be making a few of them kind of blindly, not knowing what could happen at any moment with some things. So it's more of a statement and quasi question about kind of core services, which you answered, part of it. So thank you.
Yeah, I think one thing to note as well too, and then I'll get to your question, RJ, is that one thing we're really hopeful is that the holding to the 5% of the previous award will hopefully be helpful in that, kind of maintaining that. I know our biggest goal with this is to hopefully not do any of these haircuts if we can avoid it, because it definitely affects different folks differently. So we're really hoping to not have to do this massive number of reductions that we had to do before is the dream. And so we're really hoping that by kind of giving this guidance around the treatment worksheet or contractual services worksheet, around really suggesting how to request for personnel, those kinds of things, we're really hoping to cut down on the reductions that we need, because we recognize how great these courts are and the amazing amount of good that they're doing for their communities. So but unfortunately, we do have a set budget. Again, we don't know exactly what that budget is yet. We haven't heard the final numbers. We are assuming it will be really similar to what it was in the last biennium. But we have a little bit of unknown in there. So thank you for your feedback. RJ, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to see if there was a method of evaluating the fidelity of peer delivered services. And the reason I bring that up is because, there's a lot of folks that apply for peer support when it comes to supporting folks in their recovery. We want to make sure that those peer support specialists aren't mixing up their role with something that could be interpreted as case management. And so they're kind of distracted from the reason that they're there, and that is to support people with their own mental health. And so, yeah, I was just wondering if there was a method of evaluating that, and then also to make sure that when they're providing those peer delivered services, I mean, we want them to be authentic and genuine services, because those are also reimbursable through OHA. So if there are individuals who are involved in this court system, the treatment system, and they qualify for OHA, then there's a potential there to have that service reimbursed and sustainable in the long run after this first kind of injection of funds to get that program started.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Thank you. Both great questions. So we do ask for an explanation as to how those positions adhere to the standards. And we do want to make sure that they're providing services to participants that meet best practices. So that's coming, right? We're getting some of that data from SCMS. We're getting some of that data from the SCOP. We're getting some of that from the narratives the narrative questions that we ask, so that we are making sure. I think hopefully that speaks to the fidelity that you're speaking of as well. And then also to kind of your second point with the making sure it's getting reimbursed correctly, that is something that we really looked at, and that is kind of again, when we get to that treatment or to the new budget projection sheet, we did kind of take that into account. And so that is something that grantees will be asked to kind of show us, like, what does this look like? What is OHA covering? What are, what is not being covered? All that information.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Judge Kitson-McCaddish.
I think you just hit on part of my question, but will we get an overall view of what their entire budget is and where this gap funding fits in?
Oh, absolutely. You will see lots of budgets. You will see both their requests, you'll see staff recommendations as well. We'll get into this a little bit later in the presentation, but yes, you will be seeing what they spent during the 23-25 biennium, if appropriate, of course. For some, we won't have it, as well as what they're requesting and what the staff recommendation is as well. All right. And we are being joined by Rachel Mark, who is one of our partners from OJD. She technically is not a GRC member, but we will give her a chance to chat or to ask a question, answer a question, because for the CJC portion of it, she's really, really important to connecting with the CJC and OJD. We work a lot together. In fact, I think I email Rachel every single day. And so she has been another part of this process and really guiding us. So Rachel, please, you have the floor.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Adeline, I just wanted to ask, kind of clarifying on Judge Kitson-McCaddish's question a little bit more, and I think this is actually potentially a great preview for programs and preparation. I'm wondering if part of the question Judge is posing is asking about, is there likely to be a part of the budget that is asking for their total operational costs? So understanding everything that's going into the program versus what's being asked for specifically in the grant program. And I think if the answer is yes, that's first of all, excellent question, but then is something that programs might benefit from knowing sooner than later, because of course that is something that requires some time to gather.
Right. Unfortunately, no. The answer is no. So we will only have access to what they're asking from us. And then in response, how they are projecting they will spend that money. We won't have the full operational costs. Thank you for the clarification question. I want to give folks just a minute to just kind of mull it over. And again, as I said before, if after we get done with this, and I don't know, I do my best thinking in the shower at night when I'm about to fall asleep, right? So if you have that moment and you're like, oh my gosh, I'd actually really love to see this, you can, of course, always email me and let me know, and we can add that to the feedback as well. But any other questions, any other thoughts about just areas you want us as staff to focus on when it comes to giving you information about grantees? Yeah, Melissa.
And maybe this is, you can tell me this is irrelevant, but I guess like with you brought up earlier 4002. And so like, I feel like it would be helpful to understand what the deflection programs look like in the communities that are applying for treatment court funds, to know, like, I don't know if any of them are potentially trying to sort of cross rolls over between the programs or not, like if that could be a no. But just if there is any crossover, I guess could be helpful, I think, from my perspective. And because I know that program isn't necessarily adequately funded for a lot of counties. And so like whether there is intention to sort of like combine some of this, or you know, just any of those thoughts.
Sure. I do want to clarify something. I misspoke earlier when I said 4002. What I really meant was 5204. I apologize. There was a lot going on with both of them, so that was a misspeak on my part. And I do want to note that, like, those, because again, I feel bad because I sort of set you with the wrong precedent. Those funds are separate and they don't overlap, and these programs are separate. So
right.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm
that's
sorry.
what I thought. But then when I heard you say that, I was like, well, maybe okay, so all good. For then scratch my question completely.
Yes. So sorry.
That's okay.
I will be getting more coffee after this. Don't worry. All right. Any other things that we can think of? All right, we'll go ahead and move on. But like I said, if we need to come back, by all means. So Judge Kitson-McCadish actually did a great job of kind of moving us on to like that next spot. So what is it going to look like once we give grantees these feedback letters? What's it going to look like after that? So in late May, we'll take your feedback. We're going to provide it to the applicants, and then we're going to open that final application. It is going to be due on July 1st. And that final application is going to be where folks really start figuring out what their budget requests look like. And so I wanted to just take a minute and just give you like a brief outline of what duration and availability of funding kind of looks like. So for this upcoming biennium, the project period is going to be July 1st, 2025 to August 31st, 2027. That will provide a little bit of overlap with the next grant cycle. And the reason that we do that is just to make sure folks aren't like losing contracts because there's a gap in payment. We don't want that. So there will be a little overlap. But the last day, I want to be very clear, the last day that applicants can spend this grant funding is August 31st of 2027. Then their contract will terminate on November 30th of 2027. And so we give that little 3 or 2 month window, and that's so that we can kind of cross our T's, dot our I's, make sure we're finishing everything up on contracts, getting any funds need to be returned. We do it during that process or that time frame. So they aren't able to spend funds until November 30th. They can only spend funds until August 31st. And then the contract will terminate, will be officially done. Everything will be over. I will be considering fleeing the country on November 30th. So maybe not fleeing the country, taking a vacation though, for sure. And then I do want to note kind of how financial reporting is going to go again. So the 23-25 biennium, we did biannual disbursements. That worked really well for us. What we've heard from grantees is that it's been pretty helpful. So we're going to continue with that process. It used to be reimbursements. The disbursements method is working a little bit better, it sounds like. And then the contract process and quarterly reporting will be continued. So every quarter, we send out expense sheets. The grantees fill it out. They send it back. They send us their budget adjustments if they need to move funds, depending on what the budget adjustment is. Sometimes it has to go before the commission. Sometimes it doesn't. But all of that has been working pretty well so far. So we're going to continue with those processes. And so that, once the final application is turned in, that's going to bring us to the grant review committee. You all are meeting again one time in late July. We'll have a nice summer meeting. You're going to go through the staff analysis and make recommendations on funding. And that's kind of that big meeting. It honestly will probably last a day or two. It'll be pretty long. And then we will take your analysis as the GRC. I will then take it to the commission in August at the August commission meeting, and they will make final award decisions. And then we'll go through the process of letting the grantees know the final decisions. So I just wanted to kind of put this in sort of the back of your mind. Again, it's not until July, so we have a little bit of time, but wanted just to kind of be thinking about the final application analysis. And again, in the past, and this kind of honestly speaks back to Joe's statement earlier, in the past, we've really, the funding recommendation priorities have again been based on those needs and improvement for adherence to standards and filling those resource gaps. And I just, again, want you to remember and consider that there is a limited budget with this. We don't know what it is yet, but we are expecting it to be similar. And even if it is, like, even if it was a little bit bigger, it's still a set budget. And we do have more applicants than ever before. So there's going to be a need to be really, really intentional about how these funds support the various courts and just ensuring that those final budget requests align with the recommendations that you have given them based on their scorecards and SCMS data and underspending and their narrative sections. So just having that kind of in the back of your mind as we're moving forward with this process. So I am now going to open it up for public comment. So if anyone who's been here watching this, thanks for sticking with us. If you would like to contribute, you can unmute, but I do, before you do, couple things. One, please keep your comments to a maximum of 2 minutes. We need to keep them pretty short and make sure everyone has time. Also, a friendly reminder that comments are welcome, but that we, and by we, I mean both myself as a CJC staff member, the GRC, our OJD partners, we are unable to answer any questions. So you are welcome to give comment at this time, and you're welcome to ask a question, but we will not be able to answer it. So with that, we will unmute everyone, and if there is any public comment. Also, if you're doing public comment, you're going to have to turn your camera on so that we can see you. All right, I don't think we have any. So then we'll move it on, and I just want to give one last opportunity to our GRC members. If you have any thoughts about this process, any questions, anything you're dying to know. All right, Well, if that's the case, again, I just want to stress, if anything comes up later and you would like to have a conversation with me, I'm always happy to hear feedback. Otherwise, our next meeting is May 16th. It will again be another public meeting. So if folks are listening and you want to tune in to the first GRC meeting, you're more than welcome. Otherwise, GRC members, I will be in touch via email, and I'm going to give you 45 minutes that you were scheduled to be in this meeting to go enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.